Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Cam and we've just finished watching the Blackmagic NAB conference. So I just quickly want to talk about the cameras and my thoughts and feelings on them. Now, just very briefly, the first thing I would like actually, I know the mobile app wasn't really mentioned very much, but I would love to see the mobile app become some kind of monitor so we can live stream for live recording from any of the cameras. Just a little thing I would like to see. Anyway, let's jump into the Ursa Cine. How cool is it to see a camera brand just being like, yep, let's go all out. Like, especially Blackmagic when they're very consumer, prosumer focused a lot of the time. For me, it's very exciting to see them just go all out with this cinema camera. So some of the pros, first things first, new sensor, the new 12K sensor. It's just insane. I'm so happy they've kind of pushed the dynamic range and gone to town on this new sensor, because I think there was a worry that maybe it would be a similar sensor to the old stuff. So having that improved dynamic range, the bigger sensor size, I believe it's similar to size as the Alexa LF. So yeah, having that increased dynamic range, 16 stops, it's just going to be a beautiful sensor. Now, I know they stuck with 12K, but I actually think, once again, 8K is going to be the sweet spot for this camera. And you know, you're shooting in 8K, you can shoot up to like 200 frames per second, which is awesome. So very happy to see them pushing stuff. And I think sticking with 12K is probably a smart move for now. And you know, using those other resolutions as well. It's always nice to have more than you need, so you can future-proof yourself. Now, with that bigger sensor, you'd hope as well that low light is improved, but it is a cinema camera, so I'm not going to hope for too much in terms of that. I'm not really too fussed about the accessories that they've designed with it, like the EVF. It's not something I typically tend to use, but I am quite interested in the assist screen. Now, that is going to be very handy for focus pullers, but if you're on a crew like that, often our focus pullers generally tend to have their own monitors and are separate, so they're not quite on the shoulder too much, but I can see it being quite handy to have. It's pretty cool to see the storage options as well with the M2 SSDs in there. Always nice to have options, and I believe M2s are generally relatively cheap, so that's always good to have as well. But you are going to need really fast media for recording things like 12K, so I can see why they've done that. Now, this truly is an upgrade to the Ursa line, and you can tell that, you know, it really addresses a lot of those things which we kind of had issue with the previous cameras. So for me, things like the articulating screen, little thing like that is very handy to have. It goes all the way around now. When you combine things like the frame rate options, the full frame sensor, though, even just those two things together, it already makes for a great upgrade and update to this camera line. But it doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, replace things like the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, because that camera is great in its own right, and it's hard to necessarily tell the size of this camera and the weight of this new Ursa Cine camera without seeing it in person and getting hands-on with it. So I think once we see that, we can kind of get a better idea of how this thing will fit into workflows and what kind of shoots we'd want to be using it on. Now, for me, it seems like they're really marketing towards kind of the high-end market, so we'd use it on commercial shoots. Again, I mentioned before in a previous video, I'd really love to do some kind of hardcore kind of battle testing of this new camera, just to show its reliability and see if it can really hold up in kind of harsh scenarios and climates, and just show that it can really be relied upon in a commercial space and environment, and not have it fail on you. I'm not saying the previous ones did, but I think there is a bit of a stigma with Blackmagic, you know, similar to a little bit like how Red used to have back in the day. So often when we pick the Alexa, it's because we know it's kind of like a reliable workhorse. So I do think Blackmagic needs a push for some of these scenarios to kind of be tested and show some behind the scenes of this camera in action, just across the board really. Now, of course, built-in NDs is another nice to have as well. Very good, especially at this price point. You'd expect that. You know, plenty of USB ports, plenty of storage, plenty of I/O in. There isn't too much to talk about, I don't think, with this camera. It is incredible. I think the main selling point is definitely going to be that new sensor and the improved dynamic range. But you know, at $15,000, this is definitely not a consumer product or prosumer. This is a professional product that looks like it's intended for those commercial shoots, feature films, all the big stuff you want to be seeing from Blackmagic. So it's great to see them improve the range, add new products, and just kind of compete really in those spaces. It's probably a great time to be picking up an Ursa 12K, to be fair, the mini ones, because there's probably a lot of those going for sale right now. So You know, I've always said if you're tempted to get into the Blackmagic space, just pick up one of their cameras because they're very cheap and affordable, and the image quality is incredible. So just when we thought they were finished and they brought out one more camera, it is the Cube camera that everyone has been waiting for, everyone has been talking about. So now everyone can kind of be quiet because they've actually done it. Really interesting to see. And I mean, I guess the key thing when they're talking about this new Cube camera, I can't pronounce the name, PYXIS. I don't know what they're doing with the naming conventions over there, but it's still just a bit bizarre. But the thing that I was kind of listening for when they're talking about its box camera is specifically the price point. Like, is this going to compete with the Komodo? And it absolutely does. I think it just takes down the Komodo completely, the original. Aside from a global shutter, which you are going to need for very specific work with the Komodo, this really is the camera that a lot of people were waiting for. It would have been nice to see that new sensor be put in there, but I think their aim here is to have it parallel with the 6K full frame cinema camera. So it's really cool to see them create a better body design for people who want to kind of put these cameras through their paces a little bit more. I think the flexibility with the camera, the amount of slots and points you can put stuff, especially even just little things like attaching the SSD onto the side. You can tell that they've clearly been thinking about this, and just this has been built for what the customers have been asking for. So it's great to see that be addressed. The fact that it's in EF, PL and L mount is very interesting to me. You would think they would make it interchangeable from the start, but it's really great that they've got those options there for people anyway. For me, I'd be picking up the L mount because I think that's what I'm going to be switching to now. And it also seems the most versatile in terms of adapting for PL and whatnot as well. It's got 13 stops of dynamic range. So again, very similar to 6K full frame cinema camera. Not too much of an issue. It would be nice to see a slight improvement on these things. Recently, I was pushing the dynamic range kind of to its limits, but generally I don't find it to be too much of an issue with the Blackmagic cameras. They kind of get me to where I need to get anyway. Now I am hoping the dual ISO is improved because we found that with the 6K full frame that we kind of hit the limit at about 1250. I'm recording at about 1250 right now because I'm using natural daylight. It will be interesting to see how the two compare. They should match pretty evenly, so it'll make an amazing B camera. So even the Ursa 12K, and I've got to say the build quality of this new camera as well looks fantastic. Body looks very reliable. So again, as I mentioned with the Ursa Cine line, it'll be interesting to almost battle test this camera. I'll be very excited to get hold of one of these hopefully, and certainly rig it up as well with maybe a video assist on there, a grip. What will be great actually is keeping the 6K full frame on a gimbal and then using this new camera just as our kind of main camera for the shoot. So awesome that these two options are available. They say up to about 3 hours with certain batteries, so that is going to be great as well. Just the fact you can rig this thing up and down, once again, not having hands-on with it directly is a little bit tricky to gauge the weight of it, how it feels in the hand, the size of it. But from first impressions from the video, it looks fantastic and it looks just awesome. I'm so glad to see this product exist. And now it's really looking like the kind of feature set of all these Blackmagic cameras has really come together. And I'm really glad that they announced this because I was beginning to think they were just going to announce their Ursa Cine line and 17K IMAX borderline sensor, which was insane. I'm glad they're listening to the community. I'm glad they're addressing stuff. Curious to know what you guys think of this, so do let me know in the comments below. So if you do enjoy this video and you want to see more, please be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.